Bonjour! I hope you had time to review some of the basic grammar points presented in the previous sessions. In this session, we will be focusing more on the verb. So far, in this first week of the French beginners course, we learned a handful of verbs, some of the auxiliary verbs, the verbs avoir and être, the verb s'appeler, to be called, which goes in the structure je m'appelle, tu t'appelles, my name is, your name is, comment t'appelles-tu, what's your name, that you had to use for your self-introduction this week, as well as the verb habiter, to live. Now let's review these verbs. As you can see, I'm on the homepage of Français Interactif. If I want to review any of these verbs, going forward, I recommend you use the site index as opposed to the chapter index, just because as the grammar piles up, you will not remember in which chapter you learned a certain grammar point, so you have to be able to look it up in the site index. So going to the site index, I know I want to review the verbs avoir and être and maybe some other verbs. So I can go either from this tab, or I can go in any of the chapters. I choose to go maybe in chapter number 1. In the grammar section, you will find here the verb conjugation reference, which I recommend you save it in your preference. And as you can see, it takes you to that page where they have 251 verbs listed alphabetically with their conjugation. So either way works for you as long as you review them. Alors, as I was saying, I want to review the verb avoir. It starts with A, so here it is, avoir. It opens the PDF file. And I say in present tense, this is what we've learned. Donc, j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, on a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. And don't forget the pronunciation and the phonetic events we've learned, liaison et enchaînement, that makes them sound like one unit, or that makes that Z sound between the S and the next word that starts with vowel. After I reviewed the verb avoir, I want to review the verb être, so I go under I, in French, E, there it is. Je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, on est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. Très bien. I also want to review the verb s'appeler, to be called, to be named. This one is a pronominal verb, so it's going to be under S. S apostrophe appeler. There it is. Je m'appelle, tu t'appelles, il s'appelle, elle s'appelle, on s'appelle. Nous nous appelons, vous vous appelez, il s'appelle, elle s'appelle. And let's try another one, the verb habiter, under H. Voilà, habiter. Now, before we go into the conjugation or the presentation of the verb habiter, you need to remember that in French language, the H sound is a bit particular, as it can act both as a consonant and as a vowel. So there are two types of H. We would call français, or we call them in French H muet, mute H, when it acts as a vowel, and H aspiré when it acts as a consonant. Most of the time I would say it acts as a vowel, but you can never really be 100% sure. So if you're not sure, then I suggest you look it up in the dictionary. If it's going to be aspirer, it's going to have an asterisk mark on the top of the H. So then you know it's going to act as a consonant. Bon, the H in habiter is a mute H, so it acts as a vowel. So what that means is that the E in je is going to fall, the same as it does when conjugating the verb être. The verb avoir, j'ai. Donc, j'habite, tu habites, il habite, elle habite, on habite. Nous habitons, vous habitez, ils habitent, elles habitent. Because it acts as a vowel, we're also going to have the phonetic event of liaison in the case of nous, vous, il, elle, plural. Nous habitons, vous habitez, ils habitent, elles habitent. Needless to say, H in French language has no pronunciation, so it's not like H or sound, or no, it has no sound whatsoever. Bon, going back to the verb, when I was presenting the auxiliary verbs avoir and être last week, I was saying that these are auxiliary verbs because they help creating compound tenses like passé composé, plus que parfait, etc. However, they also, and that goes for other auxiliary verbs as well, like the verb faire, aller. They also help create phrasal verbs. Phrasal verb is a construction made out of a verb plus an adverb or an adjective that gives a whole new meaning to the sentence, and that verb actually loses its meaning. For example, we have expressions in English as well, like looking up to someone or looking down on someone, okay? Looking up to, meaning admiring someone, having them as a model, as a role model. Looking down on, it doesn't really mean, it loses the meaning of looking, but, it means to belittle someone. So admiring someone or belittling someone. So the verb to look itself loses the meaning. Same happens with the auxiliary verbs when used as phrasal verbs. Now let's see some of the phrasal verbs with the verb avoir. Avoir besoin de. To need. Avoir besoin de. And I can use it as I need money. J'ai besoin d'argent. Okay, argent in French language meaning money. Avoir envie de. Avoir envie de. To want. And after that, de, usually we use a verb in infinitive in dictionary form or a noun. I feel like eating an apple. J'ai envie de eating. The verb is manger. De manger une pomme. J'ai envie de manger une pomme. I feel like going to the beach. J'ai envie d'aller à la mer. Having the intention to. Avoir l'intention de. To be hungry. Avoir faim. And then we can actually conjugate this phrasal verb. J'ai faim, tu as faim, il a faim. All it takes is conjugated the auxiliary in the tense required. We only know present tense so for now. And then using faim at the end. Nous avons faim, we're hungry. Avoir soif, to be thirsty. J'ai soif, tu as soif. Il a soif, elle a soif, nous avons soif, vous avez soif, ils ont soif. Avoir chaud, to be hot. J'ai chaud, I'm hot. Avoir froid, to be cold. J'ai froid, I'm cold. Avoir honte de, to be ashamed. Say, I'm ashamed of my teacher. J'ai honte de mon professeur. Avoir mal, to hurt, and then usually it's followed by parts of the bodies. Avoir mal à la tête, avoir mal à la gorge, aux yeux, to have a headache, to have a sore throat. Avoir raison, to be right. Tu as raison, you're right. Vous avez raison, you're right. Avoir tort, to be wrong. J'ai tort, I'm wrong. Tu as tort, you're wrong. Avoir sommeil, to be sleepy. As practice, you can pause here and maybe try, with the knowledge that you have so far, to create a sentence for each phrasal verb. You can also send them to me to correct them via the blackboard or the discussion board. Let's have a look at the first group verbs. Now, in French language, the verbs are classified in 3 groups. Verbs, okay, so first group verb introduction, regular verbs, ER. First group verbs ending in ER, second group verbs in ER, third group verbs in RE, and those being regular verbs, and then we have irregular verbs. Commonly, you'll have the auxiliary verbs in the irregular verb list, but other verbs as well. Let's focus today on the first group verbs. Creating the first group verb conjugation is, or conjugating first group verbs, it's pretty straightforward. The way we're gonna do that is by eliminating the ER, the dictionary ending where the mark of the first group verb, from the verb, and adding specific terminaisons or endings to the stem or to the radical, whatever it's left after eliminating the ER. These specific endings are specific to tense. For now, we're studying only the present tense, and to subject pronoun, right? So for je, we're gonna have the terminaison e. For tu, we're gonna have the terminaison es. For the third person singular, il, elle, on, we will have the terminaison e. Same form as for je. For nous, we will have the terminaison ons, pronunciation on. For vous, ez, pronunciation e. For il, elle, ent, pronunciation mute. No pronunciation. The only thing you will hear is going to be the consonant before the ending, which is L. Well, of course, I encourage you to listen to the pronunciation, the conjugation as many times as you can. I will do it for you this time. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, on parle. Nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. So, as a note, as I was saying in French language, E can be mute or sonore. In this case, is mute. It's not graphically marked with anything. It has no accent, so therefore is mute. So in turn, the consonant before the mute E is going to be pronounced. It's going to become sonore. And the past participle, the participe passé, is parler. For most of the first group verbs, the participe passé is going to be E accent aigu. So E marked with accent aigu. Parler. Let's see a list of first group verbs. Adorer, aimer, chanter, chercher, danser, demander, détester, donner, écouter, étudier, habiter, jouer, montrer, présenter, regarder, rencontrer, rester, téléphoner, travailler, trouver. Just to keep in mind, with the conjugation, the first group verbs, the verbs ending in er conjugation, that when the verb starts with a vowel, in the first person, je, the e is going to fall and is going to be replaced by apostrophe. Let's try to conjugate the verb aimer. J'aime. But better yet, let's go on the side index or one of the chapters so we can access the verb conjugation reference list. We were saying we would like to see the verb aimer, to like, to love. J'aime, tu aimes, il aime, elle aime, on aime, nous aimons, vous aimez, ils aiment, elles aiment. And, of course, the phonetic event of liaison in the plural person. Nous aimons, vous aimez, ils aiment, elles aiment. Let's try another first group verb. You can just go down the list and see whatever verb ends in er. Not aller, however. Aller is an auxiliary verb, so it's the verb to go. So, not that one. But let's say the verb chanter, to sing. Je chante, tu chantes, il chante, elle chante, on chante. Nous chantons, vous chantez, il chante, elle chante. Maybe the verb to work, travailler. We'll go down the list under T. Voilà. Je travaille, tu travailles, il travaille, elle travaille, on travaille. Nous travaillons, vous travaillez, il travaille, elle travaille. A phonetic point here, in French language, the double L is pronounced as a long I. Okay, just like in case of famille, ville, which, although it's written with double L, it's going to be pronounced ville, belle. Just go down the list and see whatever verb ends in er. Acheter is the first group verb. Adorer, aider, to help, ainsi de suite. Bon. Now I would like to introduce you to the negative of the verbs. For that purpose, I will go on the Podcast Français Facile webpage. You have leçon E, un E, conjugaison. The way to get to that is from the débutant link, which is débutant actually means beginner in French language. And then you have petit leçon facile, easy lessons, and we were saying it's under 1E. Voilà, conjugaison. Now let's try to put the verb être, habiter, ainsi de suite, in the negative form. First of all, let's explain a little bit the negative form. The negative form is created with two structures on both sides of the verb, ne and pas. So we're going to probably have subject, ne, verb, pas. If the verb starts with a vowel, then we're going to have subject and apostrophe, verb, pas. You can also check the negative form of the verbs from the Français interactive page. As we're saying, you can go on the home web page under the site index, and we can look for the negative. Voyons. Et voilà. Négation, the negative. We have the basic négation, the ne pas form, and then you have alternate forms. Alors, basic negation is formed by placing ne pas around the conjugated verb. Ne becomes an apostrophe in front of a verb starting with a vowel or a mute H. Voyons. Tu ne vas pas encore aujourd'hui, Tammy? Non, je ne vais pas bien. Je ne peux pas manger et j'ai mal à la tête. Donc, ne pas. Now let's have a look at the ones listed on Podcast Français Facile. Of course, you can always try to practice. Better yet, let's practice together. That would be probably our first entire practice. Alors, Tammy aime les tatous musclés. Let's say Tammy likes the muscular armadillos, right? Because her boyfriend is an armadillo. Let's say Tammy does not like the muscular armadillos. Tammy, now we know that the verb aimer, we can see the verb aimer starts with a vowel. N, apostrophe, aime, pas. Okay, so just like in the structure previously, subject, Tammy, N apostrophe, aime pas, n'aime pas. Tammy n'aime pas les tatous musclés. Rita voyage souvent. Rita travels often. Let's say Rita doesn't travel often. Rita ne voyage pas souvent. Et Rita ne voyage pas souvent. Curry et Joe Bob étudient beaucoup. Curry and Joe Bob study a lot. And we're going to have to say Curry and Joe Bob don't study a lot. Okay, l'apostrophe. I'm just going to copy this one. N'étudie pas beaucoup. Edouard adore le barbecue. Edward likes barbecuing. Edouard n'adore pas le barbecue. Tex adore Betty. Tex loves very much, right? Betty. Tex n'adore pas Betty. Joe Bob déteste le ketchup. Joe Bob ne déteste pas le ketchup. Tex et Tammy jouent aux cartes. Tex et Tammy. Now, Tex et Tammy, as you know, when the subject is masculine and feminine, the plural is going to be conjugate is going to be masculine. Donc, il, we could say, right? Ne joue pas aux cartes. They don't play cards. Trey a envie d'aller en France. Now you recognize here the phrasal verb avoir envie de, to feel like, to be in the mood for. So Trey feels like going to France. Trey n'a pas envie d'aller en France. Doesn't feel like going to France. So the way you create the negative of the phrasal verbs is by putting the verb, the auxiliary verb, in the negative, and then everything else that follows. J'ai envie, je n'ai pas envie. Tu as envie, tu n'as pas envie. Il a envie, il n'a pas envie. Nous avons envie, nous n'avons pas envie. Vous avez envie, vous n'avez pas envie. Ils ont envie, ils n'ont pas envie. Elles ont envie, ils n'ont pas envie. Voilà. Corey et Joe Bob habitent à New York. On se say, ils n'habitent pas. Oups, pardon. Ils n'habitent pas à New York. They don't live in New York. Edward étudie la cuisine texane. Edward studies Texan cuisine, right? We can also replace by the subject pronoun. Par exemple, il n'étudie pas la cuisine texane. Tammy chante bien la Marseillaise. La Marseillaise is the French anthem. Tammy ne chante pas bien la Marseillaise. Betty adore Tammy. Elle, because we can also replace, the second time around, we can replace a proper name by the subject pronoun. Elle n'adore pas Tammy. Voilà. Practice. So the simple negative is pretty straightforward in present tense. If you want to practice some more, you can go on Podcast Français Facile. You have the negative forms of the verb être, habiter, travailler. You can practice listening. Okay? Je suis, je ne suis pas. Tu es, tu n'es pas. Il est, il n'est pas. Elle est, elle n'est pas. Ainsi de suite. Be careful with the negative when the verb starts with a vowel or h muet or mute h, right? Sometimes until you get used to the conjugation, both in present, affirmative and negative, it can get a bit confusing. J'habite, je n'habite pas. Tu habites, tu n'habites pas à New York. Il habite, il n'habite pas en France. Nous habitons, nous n'habitons pas à Tokyo. Vous habitez, vous n'habitez pas aux États-Unis. Ils habitent, ils n'habitent pas en Caroline du Nord. Remark regarding the verb habiter. After the verb habiter, we usually use name of countries. So keep in mind that in French language, the noun is separated into two categories by gender, feminine and masculine, and the same stays true for the proper nouns of countries, namely of countries. they also fall under the feminine masculine category. So, but there are rules of thumb to know what gender that particular country noun falls under. But that's a lesson for chapter number 2. Now, what I would like to do is from the webpage of Podcast Français Facile, I encourage you to practice the self-introduction and the greetings. Bonjour monsieur, bonjour madame, bonjour mademoiselle. Salut Paul, tu vas bien? Ça va? Comment ça va? Okay. Bonne journée, bonne soirée, bon après-midi, au revoir. Because we were talking about the use of the verbs in phrasal verb constructions, I would like to present to you the verb aller, to go, just because the verb aller helps create a construction that we should be able to use from the first week of French language, and there is ça va, comment vas-tu, how are you doing. In its origin, the verb aller means to go, and it's an irregular verb, and therefore also an auxiliary verb. It helps create another tense, and that is futur proche, the near future. But for now, let's focus on the use of the verb aller in present tense and its forms. Je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, on va. Nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont. So as you notice, the nous allons, vous allez, double L, but it's pronounced L. It's not long E like in the case of famille and fille. Nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont. Really irregular verbs, you have to learn them as they come with that form. There is no trick that I can teach you to remember to remember auxiliary verbs or irregular verbs. You just have to practice. And the negative, since we've learned the negative of the verbs as well today. Je vais à Paris. I'm going to Paris. Je ne vais pas à Tokyo. I'm not going to Tokyo. Tu vas à Lyon. You're going to Lyon. Tu ne vas pas à Berlin. You're not going to Berlin. Il va à Toulouse. He's going to Toulouse. Il ne va pas à Seoul. He doesn't go to Seoul. Elle va à Marseille. She goes to Marseille. Elle ne va pas à Pékin. She's not going to Beijing or Peking. On va à Nantes. We're going to Nantes. On ne va pas à Sydney. We're not going to Sydney. Nous allons à Montpellier. We're going to Montpellier. Nous n'allons pas à Londres. We're not going to London. Vous allez à Milan. You're going to Milan. Vous n'allez pas à Pékin. Ils vont à New York. Ils ne vont pas à Rome. Elles vont à Brasilia. Elles ne vont pas à Montréal. Okay, and you can practice. Je vais à Paris en France. Tu vas à Tokyo au Japon. Il va à Séoul en Corée du Nord. Il va à Pékin en Chine, ainsi de suite. In the next section, namely the first session of chapter 2, I will introduce you to the prepositions, the specific prepositions that go with name of places, countries, cities, and so forth. Some more practice. You can practice with the verb aller. The conjugation is also presented in leçon 2C. They start with the verb parler, to talk, right? This is the first, since it's the first group verb, we should already be able to conjugate the verb parler. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. Be careful, please do not pronounce ENT because it's a mute terminaison, it's a mute ending. In negative form, we will have je parle français, je ne parle pas italien. Let's just read them, and although we have not learned the nationalities and the name of the languages yet, that's going to happen also in the first session of chapter 2, Bon Voyage, and first session of week number 2 of the beginner French course. Tu parles espagnol, tu ne parles pas japonais. You speak Spanish, you don't speak Japanese. Il parle chinois, il ne parle pas coréen. He speaks Chinese, he doesn't speak Korean. Elle parle anglais, elle ne parle pas portugais. She speaks English, she doesn't speak Portuguese. On parle arabe, on ne parle pas turc. We speak, or they speak, depending on the context, Arabic. They don't speak Turkish. Nous parlons polonais. Nous ne parlons pas allemand. We speak Polish, we don't speak German. Vous parlez allemand, vous ne parlez pas français. You speak German, you don't speak French. Il parle espagnol. Il ne parle pas italien. They speak Spanish, they don't speak Italian. Elle parle portugais, elle ne parle pas espagnol. They speak Portuguese, they don't speak Spanish. Ainsi de suite. And the question which we have not learned yet, but we're going to see that in the next session. Feel free to do all the practice that Podcast Français Facile presents you. Bon, now in lesson 3C, after having presented the auxiliary verbs avoir and être, as well as the verb aller, to go, in present tense, the first group verb conjugation, the verb in ER, the subject pronoun, etc., we can make, or we should be able to make a brief self-introduction. And a Podcast Français Facile in lesson 3C gives you some examples. Let's see these examples. Alors, Paul a 33 ans. Il travaille, il est professeur, il habite à Rambouillet. C'est à côté de Paris. Il parle anglais et espagnol. Il parle aussi italien. Il n'est pas français. Il est canadien. Est-ce que vous avez compris? Did you understand? Let's see the translation. Paul is 33 years old. Il travaille. It's the verb travailler in present tense. He works. Il est professeur. The verb être in present tense. He's a teacher. Il habite à Rambouillet. The verb habiter, first group verb in present tense. He lives. C'est à côté de Paris. À côté de, next, near. So it's near Paris. Il parle anglais espagnol. The verb parler, first group verb. He speaks English and Spanish. Il parle aussi italien. He also speaks Italian. Il n'est pas français. He is not French. Donc, il est français. Il n'est pas français. The negative. Il est canadien. He is Canadian. Okay? Let's see the other examples. Mélanie est jeune. Elle a 19 ans. Elle ne travaille pas. Elle n'est pas lycéenne. Elle est étudiante. Elle parle anglais et coréen. Elle habite à Nantes. Elle est française. Est-ce que vous avez compris? So we know that Mélanie est jeune. She is young. Jeune, young. Elle a 19 ans. She's 19. Elle ne travaille pas. She does not work. Elle n'est pas lycéenne. She's not a high school student. Elle est étudiante. She's at university. Elle parle anglais et coréen. She speaks English and Korean. Elle habite à Nantes. She lives in Nantes. Elle est française. She's French. Please feel free to finish the practice. And I hope that by now you feel comfortable enough to make your own self-introduction to a French person.